love my little car. The other one, so. All right, 30 seconds, please. We're already at 6.
30 seconds?
I give a heads up and they.
Yeah, here we got a new TV guy.
Oh, do they?
I already got like a Dave.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, September 14th, 2021 Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District Board of Managers meeting. Our first order of business, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Steve?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item of business is the public comment period. And is there anybody here in the chambers that would like to speak at the public comment period? Going once, twice, seeing none, going early. We'll move on to the next item, and that's the public hearing. We have a 2022 preliminary proposed budget and levy. Joni, do you want to introduce this for us?
Mr. Chair and managers, this year for the budget, we are proposing that the levy that we're submitting to Scott County include a 3% increase from the previous years. That is going to be a total levy of $1.8 million and some additional dollars there. So $1.848935. Of that, $246,200 will be allocated towards our general fund, and $1,602,735 will be put towards our implementation fund.
Great, thank you, Joni. So with that, then I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Now we have a public hearing open. Is there anybody here in the chambers that would like to speak at the public hearing this evening? And I will count to 3 on this one because I won't cut that short for, or I'll get in trouble. Seeing nobody, one last chance, second, third. I would then entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0, right, Frank?
Correct.
You wasn't on.
I did vote.
Thanks. 5-0. So we're not, I forgot, are we still voting on this then at this juncture? Yes. So then we're going to bring this up for conversation. So anybody? Joni, did you have anything further that you wanted to add at this juncture?
No additional comments.
Bruce? I figured you might, so I'm going to give you first crack.
I'll give it credit. This is something that is done every year for people that are watching at home. And this is what we have to declare what would be the maximum levy. We can always reduce it, but we have, I think in the last 3 years, we have not increased the budget. We kept it level, but we've had a few things that have had changes in our budget, and I think a 3% increase is warranted. So, but this is declaring the maximum. It can be reduced, but it cannot be increased in December.
Thanks, and I heard my colleague also, he caught that. So I'm going to do a clarification. The levy has not increased in the previous 3 years, so this would be the first year in 4 that we will have increased it. My support for that this year, I've been a fiscal conservative on behalf of our residents, but we are currently allocating, even for the next budget cycle, $570,000 that we are going to be setting aside to start accruing the money for future projects that we have from a significant perspective. So what we're doing is really we're taking money and we're putting it into the pot to do a debt payment service anticipated in a couple of years. And we're also continuing to accrue the dollars we need to do a second alum treatment on Upper Pryor. And then the third big item that we are targeting is for the upper watershed blueprint, and that is to stop the inflow of the polluted waters coming into Spring Lake, going on into Upper Pryor. So that's our way to sort of tighten the noose down for that stuff so that we can also stop doing or reduce the alum treatment. So it's actually, I think it's a very good use of the public dollars, and that's why I'm supportive. So anybody else, any thoughts on this? Kurt?
As Bruce mentioned, we have until December 15th, I believe, to set the final levy. We cannot increase it from this amount, but we can decrease it, so we'll see what happens. But I understand the rationale for this. As Mike well knows, I'm not a big tax and levy guy, but we do have some real serious obligations coming down the road, assuming, as Mike has mentioned, that we can get easements and landowner cooperation. Thank you.
So I would then entertain a motion
So moved.
to approve the 2021 preliminary levy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Just, I'm going to confirm, no further conversation. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, gentlemen. Okay, we're now on to the regular agenda, and the first thing we want to do is approve the agenda. So to my colleagues, first of all, are there any modifications you would like to this agenda? Seeing none, Joni, nothing on your side. Great, I would then entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Thanks, everybody. Okay, here we are. Other old and new business. Lump sum 2021 intern update presentation. Joni?
So this year, we had the joy and the privilege of having two interns, Camille Will and Janae Carlson, join us for the summer as our interns. And they did an excellent job, and we really enjoyed having them in the office with us. And so now they're going to share with you some of the projects that they have worked on over the summer and what they have learned this year, and any other thoughts that they'd like to share.
Can you hear us? Okay. All right, hello, my name is Camille, and I was one of the summer interns for the Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District.
And I am Janae.
And this is the presentation that we have put together to show you about our summer. So one of the first events that we did this summer was bluegill stocking. And bluegills are actually really beneficial because they eat carp eggs. So this helps keep our carp populations in the lakes and wetlands down. The two wetlands that we stocked bluegills in were the Geist Wetland and the Northwood Pond Wetland.
And a lot of our summer was spent on baited box traps for carp management. So it was setting up the baited box traps on Spring Lake, and then some middle of the night pulls that Camille got to participate in, and then lots of stocking them with corn and working with volunteers that were generous to help us on weekends, and it was a very successful carp removal.
We also participated in community outreach exercises. So these included things from doing posts on Facebook about the zebra mussel infestation of Pike Lake, and also we posted about the Hike the Watershed events, and then we also worked on community outreach flyers and attended several events. Some of these events included going to the middle schools where we worked with students to help identify macroinvertebrates, and we also worked with YMCA on a couple different YMCA youth camp activities.
And we did some carp tracking with carp that had been implanted with trackers to locate them in the lakes and see where they were at during each season, and to get a better grasp on where we could put the baited box traps and electrofishing in the spring.
That's actually a really good segue into our water quality sampling as well. So thanks to our army of volunteers, the watershed is able to collect water quality samples from several different wetlands without the watershed. Janae and I did water quality sampling in 2 different wetlands in particular. These included Whittle Prior Lake and Sutton Lake. And we would go out, we would collect water, and we would filter it and send it off to be tested at the labs. And then we also, or I guess I should clarify and say that I also helped with the wetland health assessment. So this included traveling out to 5 different wetlands throughout the watershed district and using the bottle traps and the dip nets to collect macroinvertebrates. These were then brought back to the City Hall building and sorted to assess the health of the wetlands based on the species prevalent in those collected samples.
We also did some invasive species management, in particular wild parsnip, on areas that would affect humans and the environment. So yeah, we removed hundreds of the plants before they seeded to attempt to prevent them from spreading next year.
Earlier on in our internship, we also participated in electrofishing carp removals. So we would go out rain or shine and shock the waters, and that would cause the carp to float up. And once we'd identified the carp, we would net them and put them in what was called a carp crib. As you can see from the photos, we actually would go out then and collect these carp from the carp crib once we had a large enough sample in there and remove them and put them in boats, transporting them to local farmers to be used for fertilizer.
And we also did many conservation easement inspections where we took photos and documented some violations on the properties around the watershed district, and got violation letters sent out and a lot of regulation done this year with documenting all of these conservation easements that will protect the wetlands. And then I shot footage over the summer and made a video to visually show you guys what we did over the summer in our internship.
And then right, thank you again for an amazing summer.
Thank you.
Awesome. Camille and Janae, thank you. Appreciate it. Nice job. Nice presentation. Go ahead, Bruce. You have a question?
Oh, did you guys enjoy your time this summer? Very much. Is there a possibility you might come back? Okay. Very good. You're going back to school, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, now, Camille, you're going to be a sophomore, right? At Gustavus, and Janae, you're going to be a junior, a senior? A senior at the University of Minnesota. Okay. Yeah, I hope to have you back. Did the job end up being what you hoped? Did you get a lot out of it? Was it fulfilling for you? Okay, that's good to hear. Thanks again.
Thank you. Okay, programs and projects update.
Thank you for having me. My name is Patty Dronin. I'm the administrator in the Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District, and I am working with Pete Young on the Clean Water Cleanup event this September. We're scheduled for Saturday, September 25th. Our plan is to stencil around storm drain areas. We figure we hopefully can get about 50 volunteers, divide them up into groups of about 6, and try and cover about 8 different areas. Pete is going to put a map together of different areas, and we're going to really try to concentrate at least 1 or 2 groups in the Spring Lake area. They're very anxious about participating in this event this year. So what we'll do is we will all meet down at Lakefront Park at about 9:45. Pete is teaching me how to stencil next week, so I will be kind of the trainer that day. Then we'll provide kits to each group that includes liability waivers, all the stencil materials, safety materials, and then a map of the locations that group will stencil. And then we'll meet back at Lakefront when their stenciling is done, and we're going to provide them with some Prior Lake, Spring Lake Watershed District, and City of Prior Lake swag. Any questions?
Thanks, Patty. Anybody? Questions? So again, they go to that link to sign up.
Right.
Steve? Mr. Stansel?
Question, will we, people involved have a bright vest to wear?
Yes, the safety materials will have cones and vests and things like that. Kind of hoping that it's not just a bunch of kids that want to be in one group, that there's actually adult supervision, so.
All right, thank you.
I think that's it. Thanks, Patty.
Okay, so the lake levels in Prior Lake are 900.8, Spring Lake 909.7, kind of back to that low lake level, I guess, record as of this year. This month's CARP activities included tracking. We've begun installing our this year's radio tags. We have 10 additional radio tags to implant in CARP each year. The radio tags have been lasting right around 2 to 3 years, so 10, in order for us to have kind of an optimal 10 radio tags in Spring Lake and Upper Prior Lake, we need to install about 10 each year. As we're doing these implant, while we do electrofishing, we also combine that with doing population estimates. We're moving forward with our tadpole barrier build. That'll be installed hopefully in November, October, towards the tadpole pond southwest of Spring Lake. and we've wrapped up our baited box traps. So just an update on fish stocking. I've completed the verified stocking quantities with the DNR. I've found availability at multiple hatcheries. Moving forward, I will submit the stocking permits sometime in early October. There's a 30-day window once those have been accepted to select and purchase and have those fish delivered. So from there, we'll work with our partners, Spring Lake Association, Prior Lake Association, the Rotary Club, and a donor, Jim Slater with Realty, and bring together a stocking day event. So far, our proposed stocking summaries, Spring Lake's proposed to get 2,500, Upper Prior Lake 1875, and Lower Prior Lake 3,125. Those are fingerling walleyes. Those are 6 to 8 inches.
All right, last month we had a really nice turnout with the Farmer-Led Council Lake Friendly Farm event. So this is an event to recognize farmers that go above and beyond putting in conservation practices in their farms. So, excuse me, this year we certified Joe Henches and Rob Casey. So they did practices such as like cover crops and water quality inlets. There's a wetland restoration and grassed waterways. So there was about 40 that ended up coming out and celebrating. There was also a speaker that came and talked about tillage practices, and she was actually really entertaining and informational. So it was a really nice event, and just wanted to thank Joe Henches and Rob Casey again for all the work that they're doing to help protect our waters. We also held our third of 3 Hike the Watershed events. It was a really hot day, so we only had 2 brave souls along with the City of Prior Lake. Leslie Young came and partnered along with it as well. So we hiked around the Spring Lake Regional Park and focused on the projects that we did in and around Arctic Lake to help improve water quality that flows into Upper Prior Lake. So it was a really nice day. We are still doing the boat inspections on Lower, Upper, Spring, and Fish Lake. And we had 457 inspections in August. Leaving the lakes, we had plants on the boat or trailer 34 times, which isn't, it's to be expected. However, there was one case of zebra mussels removed exiting Upper Prior, and 2 plants removed going into Upper Prior. They didn't know exactly what plants they were. They were probably too old and dried up. But there's also, the biggest thing is that there was one case of zebra mussels removed before entering Spring Lake. So they caught a zebra mussel on a boat before it was launched into Spring Lake. So that was really nice to hear.
Hear, hear.
Yeah.
Jamie, do we know where that individual came from? Did somebody ask?
That should be on the survey that they fill out.
Yep.
But I don't know off the top of my head.
And again, so far, just because of our effort here, we're still unaware of that. We have not found zebra mussels in spring, correct?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. So Kurt?
Thanks for pointing that out.
Kurt?
Just that one catch made this well worth it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is what we do it for, Kurt. It's expensive, but as we know, in the couple of years that we've expanded this effort, it doesn't happen very often, but that's why we're doing it, for this one that could be the one that causes the problem. So anyway, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jamie, for allowing the interruption.
And we are also continuing the eyelids. It's all going pretty smoothly right now. no violations or anything were caught this month, but still just a lot of people looking at the eyelids unit, which we consider, a successful thing, that they're noticing it, reading about it, and seeing it, and learning about invasive species. So, yeah, not a whole lot going on there, but.
We haven't had any vandalism or anyone messing around with the unit, right?
No, we haven't. Nope.
No, so far so good. Thank you.
Yeah. So as we've mentioned, the last couple of months, we found Eurasian water milfoil on Spring Lake, and this is kind of the first time we found this, at least since the 90s. I don't know what they did in the 90s, but we weren't quite sure how to react to this right away, but we ended up determining that the Spring Lake Association would be actually treating the milfoil rather than it being a watershed district project, because milfoil doesn't affect water quality. And so anyway, the Spring Lake Association is going to be funding the milfoil treatment tomorrow. And Steve McComas with Blue Water Science has agreed to test the effectiveness or just check for milfoil next year while he's doing our curly leaf pondweed surveys, and he would do that at no extra charge. So that was really nice of him to offer that. I'm just going to explain this a little bit. So for those that don't know, we have a program called BioBase, and that is measuring the density of vegetation in our lakes. So it's measuring how much of the profile of the water that plants are growing. So when you're looking at this image, the red is where plants are growing to the top, so it's 100% dense with vegetation. But it also just shows, and then, I'm sorry, the green is like part way, and then the blue is where there's no plants growing. So it's just like a heat map. And so we've been doing this program since 2013. And what we can do with this is we can calculate what percentage of the lake bottom is growing vegetation. And we kind of have this goal of reaching 40%, which is supposedly this number where the lakes naturally sustain water quality or clarity in the lakes. So from looking at this image, we can use the software to calculate how much, and this is showing that in 2020, 29%, is that 21? Okay. This is a map from 2020, and then I'm going to show you the transition from 2020 to 2021. So you can see where all that green showed up. That is where vegetation is growing in 2021 as opposed to 2020. So this is the most vegetation we've ever seen in Spring Lake since we started monitoring in 2013. So this is showing 29% PAC, which is plant area coverage. 29% of the lake bottom is growing vegetation. It's getting a lot closer to that 40% mark that we would like. And it's a 26% increase from last year. It could be a possibility that the lake levels are also affecting this, because if the lakes are down 2 feet, there's less water for the sunlight to penetrate through and grow vegetation. And then it can also be due to our alum treatment. So I think a combination of those two things really helped with the plant growth. But in 2020, so last year, what did you say, it was 4/10 lower? It was, or higher. It was actually pretty low last year too, so it was 4/10 higher in 2020. So 4/10 of a foot. We got this. So anyways, I just thought that was really interesting information. So then we also looked at Upper Prior Lake, which also had an alum treatment, as many of us know. So this is the image from 2020, and then we got 2021 showing here. So that was also a huge increase. And also to point out, the black areas are just areas that are deep, so deep that the plants don't grow. We just know that they don't grow out that deep. So we don't always have to map the entire lake. So 51% plant area coverage in Upper Prior Lake, which is by far the highest we've ever seen. I remember one year when I mapped it, it was a 5% plant area coverage. There was nothing out there. So that's really exciting to see. You can see the graph at the bottom right, how much that escalated. So again, partially probably because of low water levels, but also that alum treatment had to have helped tremendously. And just to see, like, Lower Prior did not have an alum treatment, but it was also, of course, lower. And so this is from 2020, this image, and you'll see there's really not much of an increase from 20 to 2021. I mean, there was a little bit of an increase, but not nearly as dramatic as Upper or Spring Lake. And you can see the graph at the bottom right just shows that Lower Prior Lake, this is a pretty average amount of vegetation for the year, over the years. It's always been above that 40% goal of ours, which, you know, is great. And it does have great water clarity, so it's pretty interesting stuff. Do you have any questions about that before I move on?
No, looks great. Thanks, Jamie. Anybody else? Any questions? Guess not. Thank you, Jamie. Good stuff.
Oh, I guess that's it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Kurt.
This is more towards Jeff, but one of the three future alternatives besides viruses and genetic engineering is poison corn bait. We're doing corn bait already. Why aren't we adding poison corn bait now?
Poison corn bait has not been approved
By
the MPCA or the DNR for anybody really to use outside of laboratory settings.
That's because it wasn't effective, or they're afraid other fish are going to eat it, or what's the rationale?
That other fish have the potential to eat it and cause, side effects.
Do you see anything happening that would be approved under certain conditions? What do you see with that?
Do I see this happening? I'm sorry. Is that what
Yes, that was in essence the question.
research I've done, there are a few private companies looking to expand on this. I read through a 2022 grant submission report from another organization that is looking to do continued research on this. I personally see this being quite a few years down the line.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, I got a question on feasibility reports. I think Jamie's the lead on this, but it says here we conducted landowner outreach and fieldwork for the Buck Lake East wetland, and now we're going to schedule a meeting with the landowner. Was the outreach, did you meet with them or touch base with them with a letter, or how did we go about that?
So Maggie had sent out letters and emails before she left, and just explaining the project and letting them know that we were going to be doing surveys on the land, and that we would be in touch in the future to meet with them. And then I think, did EOR actually knock on some doors? I saw on the notes that you sent me.
Yeah, we did door knocking on any of the properties that we entered.
And was that just to let them know you were doing the survey, or, just to let them know you're going out? So the next step is, after EOR puts some concepts together, then we would meet with landowners to actually go over what we found so far and potential.
Have we had pretty good interest or curiosity?
No, I don't see them.
Objection?
I have only heard back from one landowner that was not in favor of the project.
Okay.
Sign that send that thing around.
But did he let you go on his land or not, I guess?
Did you go on his land?
We did not need to go on his property.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. So that sounds like the next step is to have a meeting with them after some
After,
some,
yeah, after
alternatives. Okay,
we have some ideas in mind.
thank you.
Manager Loney, I'll just add that after watching this process, I think we will probably modify our approach moving forward to initially have an in-person meeting with the property owners to introduce the projects versus sending them a letter, just so that we establish some good communication about what the project could potentially be, so that there is reducing the opportunity for any sort of misinterpretations of what we might be thinking about.
Yeah, I think first impressions and being very personal is a good approach, because nobody likes to get a letter and say, what's this, and their suspicions get, raised when they see something like that, so I appreciate that. Good idea.
Agreed. Sounds like a good plan. I like it, Joni. Good improvement. Think Okay, we're on to the next item then for our 2021-2022 Integrated Pest Management Plan. Jeff, you are, I think, back up, sir.
So this is an annual plan, and I've updated it to include 2021 and through 2022. It's a guidance document that uses an adaptive management approach. It details our past, present, and proposed future work. Some of the notable updates and additions, discussions to this plan. Just kind of go over the methods and the diverse toolbox that we've used and how we intend to use those different tools. It continues to use the cost-benefit analysis as a driver of our carp management work. It's shown how our grants and our accelerated carp management strategies have aided the program and how we intend to continue using those steps to push through and continue removing carp and meeting our goals. This year was fairly unique that we encountered quite a few environmental factors, including weather and low water levels that we hadn't experienced in previous years. This really allowed us to hone in on the adaptive management approach, and good thing we had those accelerated carp management strategies in place, because it just changed how some of these tools worked. This year, we included in those environmental factors, we experienced quite a few winter kills throughout some of the smaller water bodies. Those are those water bodies that allow carp to maintain that competitive advantage in spawning. So while our traps weren't quite effective this year in capturing carp, those traps were designed to be a secondary, what's the word I'm looking for? A barrier. So, making sure that we're taking the right approach and making sure our uses in this equipment is multifaceted. And kind of the big one is this year we had previous goals set to reach these very, accelerated removal rates, and we didn't reach those goals at 30 kilograms per hectare, and I'm just proposing moving those goals down 3 and 4 years for our top tier lakes, Spring and Prior Lake. I've listed out approaches on how we can meet those goals, and have thought to do that in a more realistic manner in that time period. that's the update.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Questions, anybody? I do have some. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff, as part of the program are the pit tags to determine where the carp are coming and going. Is that something that ends at some point, and do you think that we'll get enough information where we won't have this cost for pit tags? I think the radio tags are ongoing, but I'm wondering about the pit tags.
Yeah, the pit tags are something that we will definitely be putting less in. Those were very useful early on in the stage in determining where carp are traveling to spawn. We're noticing they're continuing to travel towards these barriers we've been putting in place. So, yes.
All right, thank you.
Jeff, I'm going to see if I might ask a couple of questions on the item. So on page 10, first of all, on that chart, the CARP program management costs, figure 4, and I'd let you get there first. If you can find that. Again, page 10, figure 4. I was not under the impression that we were spending that kind of money, and what I'm seeing here is about $270,000, $280,000. Can you please clarify, is that accurate?
What'd I tell you?
That is a combination of the grant, the total grants and
Yeah, I know that.
and total levy that
So-
I'm aware of.
So I thought I recall, and even, I think we have 2020, I don't remember, I'm going to pull this one up right now. There it was, 240. Okay. But so this still is cost effective, is what I say. It was one of the other items that I know from Kurt in our conversations. It's one of the most cost effective things we do, even despite those dollars that we're spending. Jeff, can you confirm, and I know you talked about barriers in there, do we have any other barriers to the spawning areas that have not been put in, or to our knowledge, because I know we've been surprised sometimes where these little creatures show up. To our knowledge, are there any areas that we do not have a barrier to a spawning area?
The one barrier that we do have planned still for this year has not been installed. It's in the building stage. It's going to and is required to get put in by the end of the year.
Okay.
Furthermore, we have not identified new locations that are feasible yet to put in a barrier.
Does that mean there's potentially some places that we think we might need barriers the way you stated that? Is that what I'm hearing?
My thought process on that is once those carp are so determined to find spawning grounds, is that some of the locations that we might not thought of as being prime spawning habitat might, move into more.
Turn into a new nursery.
Yep.
Do we have plans to monitor that, to immediately assess next year? Because I know that was our goal, basically, to shut down all the nurseries, right? Where they're going to spawn and nurse. So are we going to monitor? Well, how many other sites are there that could become potential spawning sites?
So yes, you are correct. Those are kind of the next steps. Our pit tag stations that we've been monitoring over the last 4 years.
Yep.
Those are currently in what we would assume be spawning passageways. So we are currently monitoring, and we've been shifting those
Okay.
around.
Yep.
So yes.
Okay, so you're on it. Perfect. That's all I was curious about. A very specific question, when I was reading about the Jeffers Pond, do the carp migrate from Jeffers Pond back into lower?
They do not. We have not.
Okay,
I won't say guaranteed, but
Sure.
we have not, and I wouldn't think so through that outlet pipe,
I
the
wouldn't.
velocity and the angle.
right. I wouldn't think so either, but I was just again thinking of priorities and the goal reduction that we have. So then that's probably the only last thing I have, and I couldn't find where I thought I wrote a question. So when we first did the accelerated program, our question to staff was, what do you need to achieve the goal in 18 months? And I know we're, picking something out of the air, honestly, right? It was just to provide some stretch goal. And these came back. The easy thing seems to be to just push off the number of years. What can or should we be doing to get this done then in another 18 months rather than waiting 3 or 4 years and just keep pushing off the goal?
What we need is some really good seining events to happen. Those, we've been getting 5,000 to 10,000 pounds in each one of these seines, and we've really been leading the whole carp management group and region in getting commercial netters to work with us. So I don't think it's that we haven't done enough of them. It's that we haven't really hit on enough of them.
Yeah, agreed. So are we going to reduce the effort to try and get those winter seines? I mean, I know the challenges. I'm not trying to pick on that. I remember deeply. I've learned how difficult it is to get the little buggers. So, but are we going to, and I think that's where I was going to try and end up asking a question, but I couldn't find the page where you listed what you were doing for the years, and I didn't get the impression that an aggressive winter seine stuff was going to occur. So I'm asking if that is still in place.
Yes, that's still in place.
Okay.
What we've really gained out of this is being able to target carp in uncharted areas and having strategies to go after them. It's really just getting a hold of them and having one. Really, we just, on Upper Prior Lake, a really successful seine could put that level,
The big dent.
at a management level.
So agreed, but that silver bullet has always been elusive for the decades that I've been hearing about this. So, I mean, I'm supportive. If we hadn't done all those other cost-effective things, we wouldn't see that line going down. So I'm deeply supported. I say this both to the public and myself as I'm reminding that this does make sense to do this. I mean, there isn't a silver bullet. Even if, we got the successful seines, they're not done and over with. So the other strategies, all the stuff that we're doing, I'm continue to be very supportive. So go forth and good luck on those winter seine efforts, Jeff. Kurt?
So in other words, we haven't been able to identify any major carp pools since last winter.
Could you explain pools?
Large quantities of carp schooling, any large carp schooling since last winter. Is that true?
So let me add, because I think they were also talks of doing open water seine. So I think that's maybe the genesis of the question. And we haven't heard about that?
Correct. This summer has been non-conducive to open water seining. Combined with, we had for an unknown reason, a majority of our tags lost their signal. So we've been working off of 3 tags in Spring Lake this summer. So this fall we are implanting more tags beginning Thursday.
Okay. Anybody else? Bruce?
Yeah, question, I mean, this is our 3rd year, right? 2019, 20?
About second year? I think we started it. This is our,
The second?
This is the end of our second year, this
So
calendar
then,
year.
really, we'd have 1 more year of our accelerated program. Is that correct? So what I'm seeing in the report here, our biomass is still pretty high, 211 kilograms per hectare. Is the goal of 30 kilogram per hectare, is that reasonable? I mean, I'm just going, I'd like to get there, but I just want to be realistic. Is that what you see in other lakes that really have it under control? They get down that low? We're talking about control. We're never going to eliminate these guys.
No.
We're talking about control.
So at 100 kilograms per hectare general institutional research has said that at and below that level, it becomes less of an impact. But at that point, you're still managing, and you're still fighting recruitment, and
And there's less of them it's harder to catch.
yes.
most of them, too.
But to go to 30, I think that it becomes maybe a little bit of diminishing returns issue on the amount of effort that you put in. But from a long standing perspective, that would be really beneficial to the alum work that's been done on the lakes.
Well, that's what I liked in your report, to reevaluate, again, cost benefit. Is this effective or not? If we get to a point where to get down to 30, it's like I got to spend 3 times the money to get them down there. It's probably not worth it. The other question I had is just curious, do these carp, if they stir up the bottom, they stir up the alum, they break up the alum then or not? Do they break that up? Or they're just going after the sediment that's on top of the alum?
I can't fully answer that question. I know there's research out there,
So I might try, but Carl, you can give our scientific answer, because I keep trying to verify whether I really understand this, and I think I do, but Carl?
Well, I don't think it'll be too scientific, but yes, I mean, where they do, I mean, generally, where they are stirring up the bottom area, that is stirring up the alum as well. What's happening is it's just exposing more of the bonding sites. So you're utilizing the alum up. You're not wasting it,
Okay.
but you're using it up faster had it not been just disturbed and been there for the alum that's kind of moving up through the sediment and binding. So it's
I mean, that to me is the other reason. We don't want them
Well,
messing
so,
up the bottom.
so here's as I understand it, and I keep trying to vet to make sure that I actually am getting this. The alum that we put in that binds up with the phosphorus is a permanent bond. It's out of the potential to go into the water column. And so the alum that doesn't bind is down there to be bound. Whether it's a boat motor or a carp stirring it up, then that alum that is unbound can be bound. It's the purpose of any additional unbound stuff to bind up with something. So I would look at that and say it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Okay.
The carp have other problems from stirring stuff up to create additional, problems with our water quality stuff. But the impact on the alum, whether it's consuming the unbound alum sooner, I mean, we want it to bind up with any unbound phosphorus anyway. So, I mean, correct me, am I wrong? I keep trying to test my little theories of what think I'm learning or understanding. Am I missing something, Carl?
that's all accurate. I mean, but if the carp are truly in the shallows, rooting around and disturbing really deep into the sediment matrix, usually you're not really getting interaction with your lower water column in something below 10 centimeters of depth of the sediment. So if they're stirring it up below that and bringing up some phosphorus in the sediment up to the higher level, and it's using up the alum,
Right.
then, that wouldn't have been disturbed and brought up.
Right. It's more in being released. It's still releasing additional phosphorus outside of the alum aspect, which is back on why we're trying to do the upper watershed to stop putting pollution into the lake in the first place. But so go, Bruce.
I think I got my question answered. Thank you.
I'm almost thinking you raised another question for me, Bruce. There was something in here.
May I ask one?
Yeah, go for it, Frank.
So, as I listen to each manager down the line here, the aspirations are high. The desires are high. We want to achieve as much as we possibly can, and congratulations, from what you said, we apparently are doing so. If we use other watersheds, other entities engaged in this kind of control, if we use their outcomes. But is there anything that we are not providing the staff with that has the potential for reaching our aspirations, and you just haven't asked for it, and we haven't thought it ourselves?
So with our consultants, they have filled that gap for the time being, and they've done that very successfully. Once we move past using consultants, there are tools that would be beneficial in a maintenance mode. So I would consider once you as managers determine that we've reached our goal within this plan, and that we would transition towards maintenance, and we wouldn't, be full gung-ho going after large removals. There are tools that can aid, a staff level work.
I now remember my question, so thank you for actually asking that again. Because, so Jeff, I'll let you finish. Jeff, let me circle back on that cost effectiveness. I'm trying to remember where, if it was in this report or it was in the budget. Somewhere you were talking about what the cost effectiveness one was last year versus this year. And what I recall in reading that, maybe it didn't state it, but what I recall in previous conversations is because we made some initial significant upfront investments in, say, capital type stuff, and it wasn't sort of the operation and maintenance type recurring funding or recurring costs that we were going to see. So our actually total costs were dropping in subsequent years, and so cost effectiveness will continue to be there. So first of all, do I remember that correctly, even though I couldn't find it?
Yes.
So for both Kurt and Bruce, I mean, as we've been tracking our cost effectiveness on this, we will see that on an annual basis at some point then if this doesn't become cost effective. So I think we have the mechanisms in place to be watching our costs and ensuring that it's still cost effective versus the other projects, so we don't get into a diminishing returns. So, I mean, I think we've got that in place. Would you concur with that, Jeff and Joni? I mean, are we going to be on?
Yes.
Yes. Bruce?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Mike. I think I'd like to see that in the report. What we actually did by dates, what we accomplished, and show the effectiveness of the program. Because you're showing here an example of what to reach 30, what did we do, so we can see, okay, going forward. And this report seems like it's, I don't know, is this the right time to have the report at the end of our September meeting, I guess? Or, I don't know. We're coming into the winter season where this is more the big things that can happen for catching carp. But definitely like to see in the report, really show what the effectiveness is from this time forward. We're approving this annual report.
Yep.
The next one should really show us what was accomplished and how effective it is. So
I'm going to dovetail on that, if I may. So if we go to page 16, I think we talked about this once before, Bruce. That's one of the, like the Spring Lake population estimate from 2014 to 2021. What those charts are great to see that decline occurring as we've been ramping up some of our spending. But what it doesn't show is just on a visual chart about the different practices that we're putting in place at the different times, which would be sort of very interesting. How many barriers did we put in? When did we put in box nets? When did we do electrofishing? What
bluegills.
That would be great. The bluegills, the stuff that we're doing even now that should have bennies for the next couple of years. So we're incurring those costs that we should be able to continue to see some of that stuff happen. But knowing when we put those practices in place, I think that'd be great to see here. Any support for that?
Yeah.
Because it's a staff directive. It's not really, it's a question, but support for that, yes?
Is this after they get fully staffed up?
Sure.
I support.
Bruce? Like it? Okay.
I
Steve?
think that's what we need.
Okay. Great, thanks. Anything else on this? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the integrated pest management plan for common carp.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 That motion carries 5-0. Thanks, gents. We're on to 4.4, the Weiss Addition Development Agreement. Joni?
Mr. Chair and managers, so when development occurs within the watershed district, it may trigger our rules, especially if there is a wetland on the properties. It would trigger a rule that would allow the watershed district to put an easement in place around the wetlands to basically protect those significant water resources in perpetuity. So as development is happening, one of the first things that the watershed district does is establish a development agreement with the property owners, which is really that first step in obtaining an easement, because once we get a development agreement in place, that provides a way for the district to recover costs that we are incurring associated with establishing those easements. So what is in your packet right now are, I'll just combine it, there are two development agreements for two developments, the Wise Addition and the Messenbrink parcel. So we are asking that the managers approve that we enter into these development agreements with these two property owners, so that once we have those development agreements in place, we can then start moving towards the establishment of the easements and being able to then charge back the costs associated with those easements to the property owners.
Joni, I had one question. Is the homeowner, at least in, let's just talk about the Weiss right now, are they supportive of this easement?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thanks. Bruce? and
Yeah,
then-
I had one question on the cost and fees. The owner shall also reimburse the district for all costs related to the enforcement of this agreement? Does the enforcement go on forever and ever, or how does that work?
Yes, as our interns were showing in their presentation, they do go out once a year, and we do inspect all of the easements that we have to make sure that they are that the property owners are complying with the requirements of the easement. And particularly, those easement requirements require that the property owner really just not mow that land. So there's a 30-foot native vegetation buffer around the wetlands to protect the wetlands. It will filter off runoff and once again, keep that resource safe for the future. But, when we go out and do inspections, sometimes folks are putting, yard waste in the easements. They might be mowing it. It's usually not really anything too significant, but we want to make sure that folks are maintaining the easements in compliance, maintaining that property in compliance with the easement. So it's only, we then send out the letters, and most of the people are very responsive to the identified violations and get their property and easement back in order. There's only a few property owners who really aren't complying, and then we have to take additional steps, and then the cost associated with that, then we would charge back to them.
Okay, so probably an extreme case where people aren't complying?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Frank?
I may have asked this before. The development agreement is a template, right? You pull these, you've got a stack of them. You pull them out, you make modifications to A paragraph, C paragraph, E paragraph, add a paragraph perhaps, but otherwise it's the same document from development to development. Is that true?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Weiss Addition Development Agreement.
So moved. So moved, sorry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0. Thanks, gentlemen. All right, we're on to item 4.5, the Messenbrink Parcel Development Agreement. Joni, same?
The very same message.
So moved.
well, I'm just going to see if there are any questions first. Anybody have any questions on this development agreement? Any additional? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Messenbrink parcel development agreement.
Motion to approve.
You got it? So, second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0. Thanks again, gents. All right, we're on to 4.6, manager presentations and liaison updates. Manager Loney, you are on the schedule again, sir.
Well, this is just a real quick one. At our next CAC meeting, which is September 30th, we're going to have Steve McComas, who's with Blue Water Science, give a presentation on what he has done over the years, and mainly because the CAC members were talking a lot about muck digesters, shoreline ordinances, vegetation, harvesting, various topics that he's very much in tune to. And he's willing to come over and do like a 30 to 45-minute presentation, a little PowerPoint, and a little questions and answering. So I think it'd be beneficial for the CAC members to hear what he has to say. He's known as the lake detective, and he's been around many, many years, and has been associated with our district for many, many years as well. So it'd be a good time for even anybody here. If you want to come to the meeting, that would be good.
Thanks, Bruce. Okay, we're moving on to the consent. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Does that meeting start at 6 o'clock or 6:30?
Oh, are we starting at 6?
Says 6 on the
6
packet.
o'clock on the upcoming meetings at the very end. Was it 6?
I think that was a mistake from last time.
My apologies, that is a mistake carried forward from the last one. The meeting, the CAC meeting starts at 6:30. I will get this corrected moving forward.
Good catch, Steve. Thank you. All right, we're now moving on to the consent agenda, and for this is typically the series of items that we're approving en masse that are non-controversial, but I'm going to ask my colleagues, any items you would like removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion
Aye.
carries 5-0. Thanks, gents. We're on to the treasurer's report. Bruce, take it away, sir.
All right, thank you, Chairman. And you'll have it in your packet here, the latest information on on our funds all the way through August 31st. I don't know if there's any questions on that. It looks like we're in the red there, but in a further analysis that we talked about at our workshop, there's many items that are probably not going to get done this year due to staffing levels and other things. And so we will probably have a surplus, but much of that is going to go towards alum treatments, future alum treatments in the upper watershed blueprint project. So, but that's, if there's any questions on that, our funds right now, essentially we have 1.9 million in the banks, but we are restricting that 935,000 for items that we shouldn't be touching. They're reserved for certain items, and so we have available cash at this time at $970,000. And if you look at what CLA has given us now for a little bit of a idea to the end of the year, you can see the cash flow based on what we think is going to happen in the next few months. Our cash flow will go down to, just in November, it'll get down to 1.4 million, but then we get an input of cash from the levy, so we get up to around 2 million. So overall, cash-wise, we're pretty good. One thing I would just note that our investments are getting nothing, so that dollar amount remains almost the same every month. I've been kind of monitoring to see if the interest rates start to tick up, but they haven't done that yet. So with that, I guess we're doing pretty good, and it looks like we will have some money that we can put forward to our projects of next year.
So Bruce, I'm going to have a question.
No.
Yes, and yeah, you don't know what's coming, but you know, we've worked over the last few months and both with CLA, the new accountants, to try and get a handle on this, and you've been driving much of that, if not all that effort, really. Can you tell me, are you comfortable now that we're getting sort of things tying out here? Or do you think we got a handle? Is this stuff looking good to you?
Yeah, yes, I do. I think I had a great conversation with Laura today. And her and Chris actually get together and have actually gotten together with Joni too, looking at, you know, what we should be doing in the future, like making declarations on our budget reserve, allocating them, look at how much money we should have on hand, you know. They always would recommend you should have enough cash on hand to pay your bills, like 6 months reserve. But our cash flow is such that we have that, I believe. And they're
Currently at this point.
yeah, and these numbers are checking out. I give her the numbers from the bank, and yeah.
Okay, it's
we
checking out now.
communicate well, it's working
Well,
good.
we've struggled in the past, so thank you for staying on top and wrestling this beast to the ground. Can I say beast for that, Steve? Just having fun here. Thank you. Anybody else, any questions for Bruce? Seeing none, then we're going to move on to our last item, is the upcoming meeting event schedule. We've already got an update on the Clean Water Cleanup event, Saturday, September 25th, 9:45 to noon. Meet at Lakefront Park. The sign up at www.signupgenius.com. And then the CAC meeting that then we got confirmed on Thursday, September 30th at 6:30 in Parkview. And then we also, Kurt reminded us we have the Prior Lake Outlet Channel meeting on Thursday, this upcoming Thursday at noon. It's a virtual meeting. Joni, is that information for anybody who might want to participate in that? Is that available on our website? Or how would somebody find out about that?
Anybody who would like to participate could contact our front desk, and we would provide them the link to participate virtually in that meeting.
Great. Thanks, Joni. Seeing nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion second on the floor. No further conversation. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you.
Come on, I got to get a smile once in a while. Thanks, everybody. That was good.